Hari Om. We'll start with a Nama Sankirtanam. Shri Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Ram Om 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 Jaya Jaya Ram Om Jaya Jaya Ram Om सियावर रामचंद्र की जय, सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः। 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 Hari Om everyone. You are seeing a different setup over here today, different than our usual ashram setup. So I had to travel to Trinidad for some immigration related paperwork. So it was a sudden trip. That's why I had to record this class from here, or I am recording right now from here. We'll continue with our 7th chapter, Jnana Vijnana Yoga. Let us chant the first 5 verses that we covered so far. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Saktamanav Partha योगं युञ्जन्मदाश्रयः असंशयं समग्रं मां यथा ज्ञास्यसि तच्छृणु। ज्ञानं तेऽहं सविज्ञानम् इदं वक्ष्याम्यशेषतः यज्ञात्वा नेह भूयोऽन्यत् ज्ञातव्यमवशिष्यते। मनुष्याणां सहस्रेषु कश्चिद्यतति सिद्धये यततामपि सिद्धानां कश्चिन्मां वेत्ति तत्त्वतः। भूमिरापो नलो वायुः खं मनो बुद्धिरेव च अहङ्कार इति यं मे भिन्ना प्रकृतिरष्टधा। अपरेयमितस्त्वन्यां प्रकृतिं विद्धि मे परां जीवभूतां महाबाहो ययेदं धार्यते जगत्। Bhagwan praised Arjuna. He said, Arjuna, you are somebody who has very unique qualities. What are those qualities that Bhagwan loves? Mayi asakta manaha. You are somebody who has love for Bhagwan, love for me, and you want me alone. Asakti is where our mind naturally gets drawn towards. where we don't have to put forth any effort. That is our altar where mind revels. In case of Arjuna, it is Bhagwan Krishna. That is why he gets the word, he gets the title, Mai Asakta Manaha. Your mind is that which naturally gravitates towards me, has chosen me alone. That is you, Arjuna. And Yogam Yunjan. You are constantly striving forth effort. Is constantly striving to put forth effort, working hard to control your mind, to live nobler values. One who is very diligent, that is Arjuna. How is it putting forth those efforts on his own strength? Bhagavan says, no. Madhashraya. I alone am your support. Whatever you need, anything that is missing in your life, you seek me alone as the support to get that thing. Not only Arjuna, his whole family was like this. Mother Kunti, Yudhishthira, Draupadi. The first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam is called as Adhikari Skanda. Adhikari Skanda means different qualities are pointed out of a fit student. But it's actually talking about the devotion that each and every family member of Arjuna had towards Bhagwan Krishna. So all of them had this title, Madhashraya. Their support was not in another person, some object, power, position. Their support came from Bhagwan Krishna himself. If somebody has these qualities lined up, what happens to that person? Bhagwan says, I will give you that teaching in such a way, all ignorance will be removed from your life. Now somebody might say, what is so great of removing ignorance? You say, because of ignorance only we are suffering. Ignorance is the root cause, avidya. Because of that desire has come, kama. Because of that karma happens, and we are caught in this cycle of karma. We do actions, there are some results, good and bad. Again, we have to take birth to go through those results. This cycle continues. What is the root cause of this? Ignorance about our own true nature. There are different types of ignorance. This is the absolute ignorance. Then there is ignorance within this transactional world also. What should I do? What should I not do? What should I eat? What should I not eat? What should I say? What I should not say? That is one level of ignorance. This is deeper level where I have misunderstood myself to be this finite being. So Bhagwan says, if you have the qualities mentioned in the first line, Maya Sakta Manaha, Yogam Yunjan, Madashraya, Asamshayam Samagrammam Yathajnasasi Tachruno. I will teach you in such a way that your doubts will be removed. Asamshayam. And you will also see the result of this knowledge in your life. Samagram. Very clearly, this knowledge will shine forth in your life. You won't only verbalize, repeat what you have heard, but at the same time, Arjuna, you will recognize that your life is becoming happier and more cheerful. It is becoming peaceful, cheerful, and there is unconditional bliss in your life. That is what will be the phalashruti of this teaching. Those of you who are attending Kathopanishad class, generally first I do Bhagavad Gita, then I do Kathopanishad. But today I am recording it in a different sequence. The mantra that we have seen in Kathopanishad is Yame Vaishya Vrunute Tena Labhyaha. Who is the one who will get this truth? The one who has sought this truth wholeheartedly and worked upon his limitations, that person will get this truth. Getting this truth means being blissful and happy in life. That is the result Bhagwan promises. Now, second verse, Bhagwan made some distinction between Jnana and Vijnana. He said Jnana means knowledge, But Vijnana is something more than that. What is precisely Jnana and Vijnana? To know that consciousness is a substratum. Consciousness is a substratum, and whatever is appearing here in this world is a superimposed. That is called as Jnanam. Consciousness and world, seeing both these things separate, that is called as knowledge. What is Ajnanam? Ignorance. Seeing only the world. Consciousness is out of sight. Seeing many things as different, that is called as Ajnanam, ignorance. What is Jnanam? I know there is something called as consciousness, and this world of names and forms is an appearance in that consciousness. Now, Vijnanam is being able to abide in that truth. Being able to see the world as nothing but consciousness. Because there are no two things there. There is only one appearing as two. Actually, Swami Prakashanand ji has rope and snake example here. So I'll borrow it and I'll take Swamiji's permission later. The snake is real snake. It looks like a real snake. See, what is Jnanam over here? First, what is Ajnanam? If I just see that snake, if I see only the snake, that is Ajnanam. Now if I see there is something called as rope, which is a substratum, and I see that snake superimposed on that substratum, that is called as Jnanam. What is Vijnanam? Vijnanam is when I understand that snake, what I am seeing, is nothing but the rope only. What I am seeing as snake is nothing but rope. So I am able to transact with every part of that snake as though I am transacting with that rope. No fear whether the snake will raise its hood. Because knowledge has become clear, there is no snake there. What is there is only rope. In the same way, when we transact with the world, when that knowledge is very clear that what is really there here is only consciousness. We might be talking to some person, but our attention is on truth. He says, as conditioning we might be different. This body might be different from that body. But what is the substratum of both these bodies? That is this pure consciousness. That is called as Vijnanam, where I don't see any difference between you and I. Remember, at body level there is a difference. Mind level there might be a difference. But this person's attention is on the common substratum, which is consciousness. Great Mahatmas, they are able to hold on to this truth, and that is when we can truly say we are benefiting from this knowledge. Otherwise the state will be, we know that there is something called as world and there is consciousness, but whenever I see the world, I see only world. And whenever I see consciousness, I fail to appreciate that this consciousness alone is appearing as the world. I feel world is different, consciousness is different. Then Jnanam is there, Vijnanam is not there. Vijnanam is when, even if I am seeing the world, I know I am interacting with consciousness. Interacting with consciousness means what is there is only consciousness. This is a superimposed transaction which is happening. That one truth alone has become many in that way. The example we had seen from Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was a person climbing steps. He has to leave one step, go to the next one, leave the second, go to the next one. Then finally he has to go climb the roof. But when he climbs the roof, he understands all the steps which I left behind, and this roof also is nothing but one concrete. No matter I had to leave that behind, but finally I should understand all of it is that one concrete alone. In the same way, we are told, turn attention away from the world. Separate anatma from atma. Separate the non-self from the self. That is like climbing on the roof. Climbing one step by one step. Finally, what should be my understanding? There is only Atma, there is only pure consciousness, which is appearing also as Anatma. When I see Anatma, I should be able to shift attention to Atma. Just like here, when I see the illusory snake, I should be able to shift attention to the rope. If you are afraid of snakes, don't worry. I'll not use this example. But in our mind, we should try to appreciate what is the difference between Jnanam and Vijnanam. Jnanam is we know that there is consciousness, there is world. But does our life reflect this knowledge? When I transact with the world, do I still feel I am transacting with only world? Or has this understanding come that there is only one truth, that pure consciousness? This world is not independent of consciousness. So I am not transacting with something else, I am transacting with myself. Because I am that consciousness. That ability to see that Chaitanya in each and every part of this universe, that is called as Vijnana. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says, Jnanam is like knowing that there is fire in the wood. And Vijnanam is lighting that fire and getting the warmth from that fire. That is Vijnanam. Otherwise, Jnanam is we know there is world, there is consciousness, everything is good. But when I enter into the world, start transacting, I start developing likes and dislikes. I start all the previous emotions which were there, they also have their sway. But one who is a jnani, that jnani will not look upon world as world, he sees world as Chaitanya. On the strength of this knowledge, he is able to save himself from all raga dvesha. We need not get attached to an appearance, nor should we get aversion towards an appearance. Because the truth is different from that. Hold on to the truth alone. That is the vision of a jnani. Now such kind of abidance, Bhagavan Krishna admits, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye. Out of several species which are there, very few people, actually out of several species, one of it is human being. 8.4 million species, one of that is human being. Amongst all human beings, Manushyanam sahasreshu, thousands of human beings, kaschid yatati, one rare person strives for this. Even if people tell him, why are you trying to understand that truth, never becomes an object of knowledge, so much of complication, this and that. He says it might seem whatever it is, even though if it is seeming difficult, he says that is what I want. You call it God's grace, you call it his faith in scriptures, Guru's blessings. His quest becomes very sincere. That sincere seeker is rare. Kaschid yatati. Few people feel I have to know that truth. Few people feel I have to be free from this bondage, the afflictions of the mind which are there. samsara which comes from this world, I need freedom from it. Not everybody becomes restless. We are sometimes very comfortable with worldly joys and sorrows. Very few strive to come out of it. Kaschid yatati siddhaye. Yatatam api siddhanam. Amongst those who are striving, kaschin mam veti tatvatah. Very few or one rare person, kaschit, he comes to know me in my true essence. As my nirguna form, without any conditionings, that truth is gained by very few people. Now, first through third verse of the 7th chapter, it was Vedanta's promise and rarity of a seeker. That was the main title. So Bhagavan has elaborated until this point. 4th through 7th verse is nature of God. So Bhagavan says, okay, now I am going to tell you what is my nature. What is my lower nature? What is my higher nature? So this 4th and 5th verse also we had seen. The simple sequence of creation is, first of all, there is pure consciousness. Then that pure consciousness, along with Maya or Prakriti, becomes ready for creation. So when Bhagavan says, my creation, he is saying, as pure consciousness along with Maya, he says, this has come out from me. So first thing is Prakriti, the creation part of it. First is Prakriti, second is Mahat-tattva. Mahat-tattva or Hiranyagarbha. Third one is Ahankara. The total Samashti Ahankara. And from Ahankara comes Tanmatras, the 5 elements which are there. From that 5 element comes this gross universe of names and forms. So there is a causal universe, there is a subtle universe, there is a gross universe. Causal universe is called as Prakriti. Subtle universe you can call it as Mahat-tattva and Ahankara. And the gross universe which is there, the Panchikaranam when it happens of Tanmatras, that is called as Sthula Srishti or gross universe. But here Tanmatra when it is referred to, it refers to subtle part. So you can add Mahat-tattva, Ahankara and Tanmatra to be the subtle creation. Tanmatras when they get Panchikaranam, when they mix with each other, individual element mix with each other, then you get the gross world. But over here, the sequence is the same, but words are used in a different way. So all of you have written it down in your notes, so do take a look. What is the name of Prakriti? In this particular mantra, Ahankara. Okay, Prakriti is called as Ahankara. Mahat-tattva is called as Buddhi. Mahat-tattva is called as Buddhi. Samashti Ahankara is called as Manaha. Samashti Ahankara is called as Manaha. And Tanmatras are called as Tanmatras only. Bhumi, Rapo, Nalo, Vayuhu. All of that. So this is the inert part of creation. And Bhagavan Krishna says, this is my lower nature. Apara iyam. 5th verse he begins by saying, Apara iyam. This what I just described in 4th verse, that is my lower nature. Itaha tu anyam prakritim vidhi me param. Different from this lower nature is my higher nature. What is it? Jiva bhutam mahabaho yedam dharyate jagat. The consciousness part which is there in this inert matter, the consciousness which is reflected or conditioned in this inert matter, that is my higher nature. So I, the pure consciousness, by reflecting in this inert medium, become this whole universe. Inert medium is my lower nature. That reflection of consciousness is my higher nature. If we hold on to inert, we will get bound. If we hold on to inert aspect of this creation, we will get more and more attached. But shift attention to the consciousness part, it will lead us to the truth. For example, if I see a person, I meet a person. Now what we are seeing that person through our eyes is a physical body. That is the inert part of creation. Now in that person, there is a sentient principle also. I am talking to him, I am not talking to the body. I am talking to the sentient principle in that body. He says that is my higher nature, which is called as Jiva. So hold on to that divinity in every being. That divinity will lead us to the absolute. So if you want in simple analogy, there is bucket, there is water, sun reflected in the water, and the sun himself. Okay, these things are there. There is sun reflecting in that water, and there is the bucket. So the bucket and the water is lower nature because it is inert medium. Reflected consciousness or reflected sun is Jiva. That Jiva is higher nature because if you shift attention, if you pay attention to that reflection of the sun, very easily you can pay attention to real sun. Very fact you are seeing reflection means what? Sun is right there. Like that in each and every person, the very fact this person is expressing sentiency means it is that Chaitanya which is reflecting in that person. So I am familiar with conditioning. Through that conditioning of this body and mind, I should shift attention to that consciousness which is enlivening that conditioning. Otherwise, Bhagavan says that apara prakriti, the inert aspect of creation, will always bind us. And most importantly, inert thing doesn't have its own prayojanam, its own purpose. Inert thing is always for something sentient. That's why that sentient is called as para, it is called as higher nature, and the inert part is called as lower nature. Means if you see some house somewhere, what is the first question we ask? If it's a nice house, let us say, whose house is it? So house is not for the sake of house. House is for the sake of the person who is living there. So that sentient entity, Jiva, he is the one for whom that inert matter is. That's why inert matter is called as lower nature. The Jiva who is there, the sentiency part, that is called as higher nature. This whole body also is functioning for that Jiva only. That is why Bhagavan Shankaracharya says this apara prakriti, the inert part of prakriti, that is nikrushta. Nikrushta means by itself it will never tell me whether it is right or wrong. Inert is inert. We have to use our viveka not to get stuck with inert things. We have to use our discernment not to get carried away by inert things, because it has the power to pull. That is why it is called as apara prakriti or nikrushta prakriti, inferior prakriti. Puja Guruji has beautifully demonstrated this point in Shiva Sankalpa Suktam. While introducing what is our mind, Guruji says, our mind is a combination of both these things. There is inert part also and there is consciousness part also, reflected consciousness. So more and more we pay attention to inert objects, mind also becomes inert. It also becomes dull. And more we shift attention to consciousness, mind becomes more bright. Bright in the sense, the joy that this mind experiences is greater when it shifts its attention to consciousness. Second line is very interesting. Jiva bhutam mahabaho Yaya idam dharyate jagat. Bhagavan says it is this Jiva alone who is holding this whole universe together. Now start wondering, what do you mean holding universe together? How does Jiva hold universe together? See, look at this body. The moment Jiva departs, moment reflected consciousness departs from this body, it doesn't take much time for body to disintegrate. So if you ask who is holding this body together, it is not only the food that we eat, the drinks that we have, health drinks. It is this Jiva. Just like reflected consciousness is holding this body together, each and every part of this creation is presided over by that consciousness, which is holding this whole universe together. That is why whenever we see nature, there is a presiding deity of that particular material thing. This point I have discussed before. If you see Himalayas are just earth. Himalayas and you can say mass of earth in a different name and form. But the presiding deity, the consciousness which is presiding over Himalayas, that is Himavan. So Jiva is Himavan, who can become father of Parvati ji. When children ask this question sometimes, how can mountain have a daughter? See, what you are seeing there is only the apara prakriti, the lower prakriti. In that lower prakriti, there is sentiency which is presiding over it, which is para prakriti. That is this reflected consciousness. And where you see reflected consciousness, infinite consciousness is right there. You don't have to look for it somewhere else. In sun example, that is a shortcoming. Reflection is here, sun is there. Example will always have some or the other shortcoming, but in consciousness example, all pervading consciousness will reflect in a particular conditioning that will be called as a Jiva. So Himalaya says Himavan. Ganga water, chemically it is only H2O. But presiding deity over there, the consciousness presiding over that water is Mother Ganga, who is Bhishma Janani, mother of Bhishma. So like this, all different parts of this creation have a presiding deity. There is a Jiva who is holding this creation together. This is one way to understand. Jiva Bhutam Mahabaho Yayedam Dharyate Jagat. Another way to understand this is, this whole universe that we have is to give karma phala to jivas. 14 different worlds are created. Dharyate Jagat is said, right? Jagat includes all 14 worlds. Brahmaji's world, Swarga, our world here. 7 worlds are below. All of them are to give karma phalas, experiences, appropriate experiences to jivas. So it is Jiva who is deciding how world should be. If somebody has to go through Swarga karma phala, Swarga has to be created for one Jiva. If at all it happens that way, one Jiva will have to experience that particular karma phala, so that world has to be created for him. 100 people have to experience flight getting delayed. All 100 will show up in that one flight. That karma phala everybody experiences. So who is deciding how world should be? He says Jiva is the one who is deciding how this world should be. You know what is the positive side of this? If every Jiva decides, I am going to live a dharmic life, I am going to live life of values, I am going to work upon myself. He says the cosmos is helpless to give all of them good circumstances. Cosmos is helpless, but to give all of them happiness in life, that whole society will prosper. This is what we call as Ramarajya. That is the applied side of this line, Jiva Bhutam Mahabaho Yayedam Dharyate Jagat. It is the Jiva who decides what kind of loka he has ordered for himself. Providing that loka is not in his hand, that Bhagwan provides. Bhagwan will provide appropriate loka. He cannot create. Jiva cannot create Swarga. Jiva cannot create Manushya Loka. All he can do is, he can order his fields of experiences. He does a good karma, he'll be put in those fields where he will get joy, happiness in life. Jiva Bhutam Mahabaho Yayedam Dharyate Jagat. So the main part here is, whenever we see inert creation, there we should see reflection of consciousness also. It's easier to practice with a person. You see the person, you see somebody whom you are talking to, just appreciate the divinity in that person, mentally bow down to it. Because it is Bhagwan's nature. That is what he is going to say in the next verse. Etadyonini bhutani sarvani tyupadharaya aham kritsnasya jagatah prabhavav pralayasthatha etadyonini bhutani sarvani tyupadharaya aham kritsnasya jagatah prabhavav pralayasthatha. Etadyonini. This apara and para prakriti, what we just saw, which is the origin of all jivas, bhutani, whatever is manifest, whatever is born, all jivas, this is nothing but me alone. Understand this very firmly. Etad yonini bhutani sarvani iti upadharaya. Arjuna, with my para and apara prakriti alone, I manifest as this whole universe. My lower nature becomes the inert conditioning part, and my higher nature gets reflected in that conditioning. In simple words, I alone appear as this universe. Aham kritsnasya jagatah. Of this entire world, kritsnasya means world in its entirety. Prabhavah pralayah tatha. I am the womb, I am the origin from which this universe emerges. It is sustained right now, and it will dissolve back into me alone. See, Bhagwan is telling us how to keep our mind in God 24/7. One form of devotion which is very important for us to connect with God is to see Him in one form. That is when the sweetness comes in our devotion. We connect with one form of Bhagavan. But the shortcoming there, disadvantage there is, you have other things to do. You cannot, sit in one place whole day. I have to go to work, I have to take care of family, do so many other things. How can I keep my mind in Bhagwan all the time? This is the answer. When I understand this whole universe is that same Bhagwan whom I worshipped this morning, that is when I cannot unsee God anywhere. With this bhavana, serving wherever God has placed me. Understanding that Bhagwan alone is appearing everywhere, I cannot serve the whole world. But in that world, He has given me a part to serve. It might be my workplace, it might be my family. But serving that smaller altar is actually serving Bhagwan only. This is where Ramana Maharshi ji said, true karma yoga can be practiced only when we get this vision of God. Jagat Ishadhi Yukta Sevanam Ashtamurti Bhrut Deva Pujanam. Ashtamurti Bhrut, 4th verse, the Apara Prakriti. This whole universe is nothing but Bhagwan only. Jagata Ishadhi Yukta Sevanam. Ishadhi Yukta means when I transact with Jagat, the understanding that I should have is, this is Isha, this is my Bhagwan, not world. It might be giving glass of water to somebody, but in his understanding, he says, I have given this Achamanam to my Bhagwan. Jagata Ishadi Yukta Sevanam. With this mindset that giving glass of water becomes Pujanam of the Lord, it becomes Karma Yoga. It's a very profound way to think, very purifying way. It expands our mind. Understanding Bhagwan as this whole creation. When we apply Chandanam to Puja Gurudev, when he was in his physical form, or now we do it for Padukas. Where do we apply Chandanam? Either we apply on the forehead or we apply on the feet. Now what is the understanding? Even if you apply on the feet, what do you say? Did you apply Chandanam to the feet, or do you say you applied Chandanam to Gurudev? We say I applied Chandanam to Gurudev. Because that feet is part of the whole body. It is not something independent. So even though you have applied to the feet, you have applied to the master. Like that, even though we have served smaller part of this creation, whom we have served is Bhagwan alone. Because Bhagwan is the whole, my little world that I have is the part. Bhagwan is the master of all beings, the family with whom I am living. That is one small part in that totality. So if I serve my family, I am serving Bhagavan. That is this understanding. The point here is, these verses should not remain like a theoretical understanding. That Bhagavan is there, who is appearing as his creation. But my transaction in this world continues the same way as it was before. Then what will we say? We have Jnanam, but not Vijnanam. I read one nice story where one disciple dashes into his guru's kutia, goes at the feet of the teacher, very anxious, and he says, "Oh Guru, teach me meditation. I want to learn meditation. Please teach me." I think it's Aarti time here. The Guru says, "When you came inside, I saw that you put your footwear one on top of the another. The bottom one is crushing under the weight of the top one. So go and put both of them next to each other. The door that you just slammed, it is still weeping. The sound is still coming. Go and close it gently. Stay here for few years. Do seva. Then we can begin teaching meditation." What was the Guru trying to say? Only when we are sensitive towards the world outside will we be able to watch our mind become sensitive to thoughts. The outer world is a very gross expression where we have to start seeing this divinity. Not only see divinity, but to change our transaction accordingly. Then comes the next step of turning into the inner world. The reflection on this particular verses, more we do it, it will help us later in the following chapters, because in Bhagavad Gita you will notice Ekarupa Upasana is not elaborated much. If you read Srimad Bhagavatam, elaborate description is given on hair of Bhagwan, eyes of Bhagwan, the complexion of Bhagwan, how he stands. Now that is one form of meditation. You find one description in Bhagavad Gita which is talking about Saguna, Sakara, Rupa of Bhagwan. The physical attributes of Bhagwan describing is not seen in Bhagavad Gita. The devotion is introduced in this way. So Upasana has to be done by seeing Bhagwan as this whole universe. It is easier if we start with nature. It is easier to see God there. If you directly start with a bothering neighbor and say I have to see Bhagwan here, it's very difficult. So wherever we have already strong Ragadvesha, you will notice there we will get stuck. So first they say, okay, do it in safer places. When they swim also, right? You swim in an area where your feet touches the ground. Then you go little bit more. Then you should be able to swim in ocean. Like that here, first practice, whenever we see nature, you appreciate the beauty of nature, but right there, to see that as Bhagwan Swarupa. This is how Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi saw Arunachala mountain. It was not a mountain for him, it was manifest form of Bhagwan Shiva. That is this line, Aham Kritsnasya Jagataha Prabhavaha Pralayastatha. I am the origin, I am the substratum in which creation is sustained, I am the place in which creation dissolves. So what I am seeing right now is Bhagwan only. In Mundaka Upanishad, example of a spider is given. Just like the spider brings out the web from itself, spreads it out, and there are certain kinds of spider which eats it back again. This is like that from Bhagwan, this whole universe emerges. It is sustained in Bhagwan, and it emerges back in Bhagwan. Elaborating this further, Bhagwan mentions a very popular verse, very oft quoted. Mattaf parataram nanyate, mattaf parataram nanyate, kinchidasti dhananjaya, kinchidasti dhananjaya, mai sarvamidam protam, mai sarvamidam protam, sutre manigana iva, sutre manigana iva, mattaf parataram nanyate, kinchidasti dhananjaya, mai sarvamidam protam, sutre manigana iva. Mattah parataram na anyat kinchidasti. O Arjuna, in this whole world that you are seeing, so much of variety is there. Names and forms are there. Really speaking, there is nothing other than me. There is no other cause of this universe other than me. And even right now when you are seeing it, you are seeing me alone. Mattah parataram na anyadasti. Kinchit. Arjuna must have said, Bhagwan, can you give me an example? Dhananjaya, Bhagwan called him. He said, can you give me an example? He says, Mai sarvam idam protam sutre manigana iva. Just like all beads, let's say if you have a Rudraksha mala, money which is there, it is sustained, put together by the thread inside. Sutre manigana iva, just like all the beads are woven into the thread, like that this whole universe is woven unto me. This whole universe is woven into me. I am that thread in this whole universe. Mai sarvamidam protam sutre manigana iva. Now that example is very beautiful. When you see the necklace, when you see the beads, we don't notice the thread. Only when the thread snaps, all beads fall apart. That is when you know this thread was what holding this together. But wise person, even if he is seeing the bead, he knows that there is an unseen thread. There is an unseen thread which is holding all the beads together. In the same way, when you see creation systematically running, planets functioning in their own order, otherwise imagine, this eclipse and all, how we are able to predict with so much accuracy. Seasons come in time, whole universe running in an intelligent fashion. If we leave it up to Mother Nature, everything is intelligent only. When we add our intelligence, I won't call it artificial intelligence, but our own intelligence we add into it, that is when a lot of chaos happens. But the point here is, Bhagavan says, this whole universe is sustained by me. I am that unseen thread sustaining this whole universe. Sutre Manigana Iva. There is one text called as Jnaneshwari. See, these teachers who were writing, right, they were devoted to their school of thought. If they said, if I have gotten convinced about Advaita Vedanta, non-dual truth, then they will make sure that there is no room for error. They will clarify things in such a way that non-duality gets established. So Jnaneshwar Maharaj, he gives an example, and in fact he brings an objection. If you see the thread and the beads which are there, bead is independent, thread is independent. Meaning, even if you remove the thread, you will still find bead somewhere, thread can be found somewhere else. So if you give this example and you say the beads represent world and the thread represents consciousness, what will we end up with? Consciousness is independent over here and world is independent. So that will be Sankhya Darshana. Prakriti is independent and Purusha is independent. Then you will end up with a different school of thought. So he says this thread is unlike the thread of beads. The thread and beads, he says, don't take that example. Take example of a Janevu. Have you seen the Brahma Granthi in Janevu, how it is? In that thread alone, you have a knot. With that thread alone, you are making a knot. So there is no difference between the knot and the thread. That thread alone has become the knot. So like that he says, consciousness alone has become this world. It is not something independent. You see how fine they are in terms of Advaita Vedanta. If you had taken the thread and bead example, you would have gotten a different analogy. Okay. So, Mai Sarvamidam Protam Sutre Manigana Iva. So, whenever I see the money, attention should go on the thread. So, whenever I see Jagat, whenever I see people, attention should go on Bhagavan. That is the main idea here. So, we'll pause here. More details we will continue in the next semester when we meet. I miss being there today, this being the last session of our Balvihar year. But I really want to thank all our sevaks who diligently, contribute in several ways to make this class happen. And all of you for regularly coming, showing interest. That is our prayer to Bhagavan also, Puja Gurudev, to keep our enthusiasm alive. May our jijnasa be kindled by Bhagavan, because it tends to dampen over summer. That's what I've seen all of you also share. When we don't have regular study, we need more effort to stay connected. So all other sessions, whichever were not uploaded on our channel, it will be done shortly. Kathopanishad will be recorded and uploaded. It's already recorded. It will be uploaded soon. Bhagavad Gita also. 6th chapter, last few verses, and 7th chapter. That will also be uploaded. So have a safe summer. Pujya Swamiji's Yajna is there in end of August, early September. Looking forward to seeing all of you at the Yajna also. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.